everyone, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Laurence Carr, and I will be your host and moderator for today's webinar, Sustainability, Health, and Wellness at Home, which I'm sure will be an informative discussion. By way of introduction, I am the CEO and Creative Director of Laurence Carr Design, an interior design firm with the mission of creating sustainable interiors that enhance our well-being. I am a proud ambassador for the Sustainable Furnishing Council, a Green Leaders accredited professional, a member of the International Living Future Institute and of the International Well Building Institute. Needless to say, I am passionate about this topic. Now, I am honored to be joined by such distinguished individuals who are not only advocates, but also true practitioners of environmentally conscious practices. Susan Inglis, Executive Director of the Sustainable Furnishing Council. John Opperman, Executive Director of Earth Day Initiative. And Andrea Scharf, founder of Andrea Scharf's Landscape Design. We are going to focus our panel discussion on the how. That is, how can we as manufacturers, designers, architects, landscapers, realtors, and consumers participate and promote sustainable practices and contribute to a circular approach. We will discuss what to look for and how to design and furnish indoor and outdoor spaces that replenish and heal. We'll have some time for questions at the end. Please type them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screens, not the chat. Before we get into it, I'm going to touch briefly on the why. That is why you should care about a more sustainable approach and the circular economy in particular. In short, we are facing a natural resource crisis. Our demand for natural resource continues to grow exponentially. According to the United Nations, we extracted nearly 90 billion tons of natural materials globally in 2017. That is biomass, fossil fuels, non-metallic minerals, to name a few. That is 3 times more than in 1970. On current trends, this will double by 2050. That is 180 billion tons every year. On a per person basis, that's 12 tons per person per year. And in rich countries, that number is closer to 40 tons per person per year. Next slide. So there are 2 problems with this situation. The first problem is that we are depleting the Earth's resources, which are finite. The number 2 problem concerns waste. Our economy is linear. That is that we extract, consume, then throw away. In fact, 90% of what we extract is thrown away, and that is choking our planet. In short, this system is unsustainable. We have to really go toward a circular economy of really recycling and upcycling. Next slide. Thank you. Finally, the construction industry is a major contributor to the consumption of natural resources, and therefore this is a problem. So we are not only in a position to make a difference, all of us, but I would argue that that is our obligation. Here's just an example of what the circular economy function and how it works. But this is it for me. That sets the stage. Now on to our panelists. Can you each of you spend a few minutes introducing yourselves, including the work you are doing today? Suzanne, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Laurence, for the opportunity to be part of this conversation and for your leadership in bringing this conversation about circularity forward. It is close to our heart here at Sustainable Furnishings Council, which I have directed since we began 14 years ago. We are a membership organization. Our members are involved in residential furnishings in various ways. So they might supply materials, including recycled, reclaimed materials. They might manufacture any number of furnishings products. That might be stores where these things are sold, and they might be design firms that are specifying products. Each of our member companies makes their own public and verifiable commitment to sustainability and to transparency and to continuous improvement. And we, as an organization, help companies realize their commitment. So we provide a lot of guidance and resources, educational programming, networking opportunities, and marketing support. All our members can use the member seal in their marketing and advertising. We are an educational organization more than anything else. So we are helping companies know how to reduce their environmental footprint, no matter what their role is in the industry. And further, we are helping consumers find the more environmentally safe furnishings that they prefer. We do have a certificate program as a main part of our education. It is called Green Leaders. You mentioned it, Laurence. You are a green accredited professional. It's a 6-hour, 6 CEU course. It will give participants an overview of what is this sustainability stuff and what does it have to do with us and our businesses. And it gives you lots of guidance for good questions to ask, answers to look for, and how to put these things together to do your business more efficiently and grow your business. And in the next slide, we see why this is so important. The furniture industry is a global manufacturing industry, so we burn a lot of fossil fuels as we send materials around the world, and as we manufacture them into product in our factories and as we send products around the world. A lot of the material we use is wood, and taking care of our forests is perhaps the most efficient way that we can address the global climate crisis. So that is our responsibility for halting deforestation is one of the places where we focus with a Wood Furniture Scorecard initiative. Another place where we focus with our What's It Made Of initiative is in raising awareness about the harmful chemicals that are most commonly found in furnishings and stimulating innovation towards their elimination. It's going to take a while to get rid of them, so that I emphasize that this is a continuous thing. It is important because, for one thing, the presence of these harmful chemicals that persist in the environment and cause harm to human health and other life on the planet also impedes recyclability. So when a perfectly recyclable material like 100% cotton is drenched in flame retardants, for instance, it ceases to be so recyclable. This is some of what all we are concerned about. I do invite you to get involved with us. So if you have any interest in the kinds of things we're talking about, we're here to help you dive deeper.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. John?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I am John Opperman. I am Executive Director of a nonprofit called Earth Day Initiative. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We put together large-scale Earth Day events every spring. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day this year, so that's a big thing, really tying that into the climate momentum that we're seeing in recent years. Then we also have a series of year-round programs. The one that is most relevant to this conversation is we have a green building publication called Lessons Learned that we have put out for about 20 years. And it's various case studies and interviews with folks in the green building community. And that is something that we sort of talk about trends and developments in the green building industry. We also have a series of programs talking about what people can do in their own lives. We have a podcast called Parts Per Million that we're launching right now. We have a website called Do Just One Thing. do just one thing, that's the number1.org, where you could find simple things that you can do in your own life, which we feel that everyone is always coming to us, just really craving, what's the one thing I can do? Just tell me something that I can do. People really want to make a positive impact, but the thing is, the issues themselves are overwhelming, but also the list of solutions are overwhelming. So people get very bogged down, and here's a list of top 20, 100 things you can do to green your lifestyle and make a positive impact. We break it down to be very simple and focus on one thing at a time to work with human behavior, that if you simplify it, people can accomplish one thing at a time, then we can always give them another thing later. So that is one hat that I wear, the Earth Day Initiative hat. The other hat that I wear is a spin-off of the Green Building publication that I mentioned. So the work that I've done on the Green Building publication, I started to realize this publication and the larger green building industry in general really is a whole lot of industry talking to industry. So it's a whole lot of developers and architects and designers talking to other developers and architects and designers, but few people really talking to the public about what they can do in their own life when it comes to a green home or working in a green office. A lot of the language is very technical, and because the people involved in the green building industry really care about the environment, what they talk about is the environment. But the problem is, if you study what actually motivates human behavior, it's often things that are much more personal. People want to do the right thing when it comes to the environment, but what really is going to motivate them is the health and wellness of their own family, or saving money, or the day-to-day concerns that people have. So I started working with a real estate brokerage, and we since merged with Compass. Some of you might be familiar with the real estate company Compass. So I work at Compass as this kind of side project, in addition to my work at Earth Day Initiative, as a broker and consultant focusing on green and healthy homes. So the idea that there are all kinds of things in a greener, healthier home that might actually resonate very well with the average person. Better air quality, better light quality, lower energy costs. Your child is not crawling around on floors that contain formaldehyde. All these things that if you just communicate this to the average person, of course, why wouldn't you want to live in a greener, healthier home? And often it's not even more expensive. And if it is, it's marginal, but often they're building various sustainable homes, for instance, in New York, in high-rise buildings, that it's LEED certified or Passive House or WELL certified, whatever it might be, but it's not actually any more expensive than the home next door because they're not really marketing it. So this is an illustration that you can see on the screen. I believe everyone can see that. That gets to the idea of communicating, why should the average person care about it? So what I say in the consulting that I do, for instance, I am working on a couple of projects. One, for instance, is a Passive House project. So Passive House is a German standard. It originated in Germany, but it's all about minimizing the energy usage for a building through an airtight envelope. That's an oversimplification of the standard. But I'm consulting on that in terms of how do we better communicate, okay, why should you care about this? As a potential buyer, what is your interest in this? So it's been really interesting creating animations and illustrations for this project. These are not the illustrations for that project. Those have not been released publicly yet. But talking about, okay, what's going to resonate with you? It's the exposure to natural light. The fact that if you have more exposure to natural light, studies show that you're going to get 45 more minutes of sleep per night. That's a very tangible thing that resonates with people, that people get. And of course, I want to look at that apartment over some other apartment that has less exposure to natural light. Energy efficiency could save 30 to 60%, depending on what kind of green building it is. Exposure to nature results in 25% better mental function and memory, studies show. All of these things that actually are benefits to you, that's what we try to do with our brokerage, communicating to the public, this is why you should care about greener, healthier homes, with the purpose of, if we start talking about it more, there will be more and more demand for it, and therefore more and more supply. Because the end goal of what I do, whether at Earth Day Initiative or with the brokerage, connecting people to greener, healthier real estate, is really increasing the inventory of sustainable homes. I know we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff through the whole session, so I'll leave it there. I hope that wasn't too long, and looking forward to it.
Thank you, John. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you to Almost for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Andrea Scharf. I am the owner and CEO of Andrea Scharf Landscape Design based in Los Angeles, California. We do commercial and residential projects throughout the country and some internationally. I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about a subject that I'm very passionate about, and that is sustainability, and as it applies to landscape design. And all of you out there, for the people who are watching and want to be able to implement this on a more granular basis, I'm the one to help you out. So also health and wellness at home, especially now during this era of COVID, how we're creating environments that are more healing and therapeutic. So part of my initiative that I like to work with my clients is creating environments that are more eco-friendly. So we implement best practices when it comes to irrigation, when it comes to capturing rainwater and roof water and remaining that on site and implementing that for not a rainy day, but a sunny day. And also to be able to mitigate the heat island effect that many of us cause when we are building our homes and create too much hardscape. I encourage a lot of people to retain on site and to plant large shade trees, because obviously when we're deforesting as much as we have been, it's super important for us to think kind of on a local level, how can I replenish this? And so by planting large shade trees, not only do we make our homes cooler, but we also create an ecosystem that brings in owls that can help with pest control, that also could be home to possums, which are also really good for organic pest control. And then kind of taking that whole notion one step further, creating environments that allow for natural pest control, like I explained with the owls. Also, we will oftentimes add in bat houses that encourage bats to come and roost in the area. And I know bats have gotten a bad rap lately, but I'm here to tell you people that if you have an insect problem, bats can actually eat their entire body weight in a day in insects, and that is a lot of mosquitoes. And if you are using those natural vector controls, if you will, then you're not having to pay somebody to spray and put down chemicals around your house, which is a big benefit. Additionally, we also like to think about other things that we can do to help our environment and kind of mitigate the use of pesticides and herbicides around the house, such as showing clients how they can compost, and showing clients that we can retain wood cuttings on site by chipping those and saving those later for bark mulch, or even showing families how to create their own vegetable gardens. I work with a lot of families with little children, and engaging children on a very basic level is super helpful to helping create and keep these environments alive. So
great.
That's me.
Thank you so much to all of you. Such interesting insights already. So let's get into the discussion. Susan, how have manufacturers responded to the need for environmentally safe products to reduce their environmental footprints over the past several years? And if you could give us a sense of what proportion of products are now eco-friendly? That is to say, are eco-friendly products still at the margin, on the fringe, or are they becoming more mainstream? If you could share also some, SFC consumers findings and else.
Sure. The first thing I have to tell you is I do not have a percentage of how many products are eco-friendly now. I can't tell you a firm percentage. What I can tell you is that over the 14 years of our existence, I've seen more and more companies choosing more eco-friendly products and processes. And why are they doing it? For several reasons. First, being when it saves the money or effort, when it is an easy choice. And the fact is that there are more easy choices for them to make. So we have seen more good choices for sustainability in that way, a voluntary move towards water-based finishes, a voluntary move away from some of the flame retardant chemicals. So that kind of thing that is happening voluntarily, we have definitely seen a lot of progress in 14 years. We have also seen pressure put by the furniture buying public. We have seen, and designers and manufacturers do, of course, respond to what consumers want. So we have seen more and more the voice of the consumer making a difference. It is known that, and our own research, that's what you were asking me about, our own research shows that almost all consumers, 98% of consumers, are concerned or very concerned about any of the range of sustainability issues that fall under this wide range of issues that is that falls under this term, sustainability. We've been doing our consumer research for over 10 years now, and when we started, about half of all furniture buying consumers were concerned about any issue we asked them about. Now it's 98% of them, and they are acting out of their concerns. So they are recycling more, they are driving less, they're adjusting their thermostats, and they are choosing more eco-friendly product. The fact is that they have been choosing less in eco-friendly furnishings than in some other things like paper and cleaning supplies, because they still often do not know what their choices are in eco-friendly furnishings. So we do see that in this industry, though there are good products available, they are not always advertised as such. And in my opinion, it's very important for each of us in our businesses to be loud about what we are doing to sustain a healthy future. So we should be talking about our choices in materials and in processes. It is going to sell more product for us, since 90% of consumers would choose eco-friendly. Of course, given that they like the style and it's within the budget they're shopping with, but it is a motivator for consumers.
Thank you, Susan. That is great to hear. And thank you for sharing some of these numbers. John, in this unique environment, we see an uptick of property purchases in the suburbs. In a Forbes article last year, you talk about how you discovered a largely untapped market of homeowners seeking greener, healthier homes, as you explained in your introduction. Where do you see this interest today in buying homes that have a smaller carbon footprint and more energy efficiency?
Yeah, so I do think that there's an increasing interest in sustainability in general. And I think a lot of the issue, as Susan was talking about, is just people don't know what the options are. And that's one of the big reasons that I talked about in the intro about why I wanted to move into this space, because brokers, for instance, are the main touch point for people when they're purchasing a home, or even when they're designing a home. Often people purchase a home and then they're looking to furnish it and they need recommendations. And if you can connect people with, okay, what is the home that might be more sustainable and healthier for you and your family? And then also, what can you do in that home when you're furnishing it or designing it? There's this opportunity to educate people that's missing, and people just don't know what to do. So I think that once you talk to people about it, there is an interest. In general, there hasn't been a huge amount of interest because I think, similar to other industries, you kind of have to build the market around this. So we've seen this, for instance, I talked about this, I taught a course this past year at NYU to undergraduates in environmental sciences around marketing green homes and how we can communicate sustainability in general. We really took an all-encompassing, broad approach to it to see how you best communicate climate change, how you best communicate sustainability when it comes to products. We were specifically looking at green homes, but what we did is we looked at other industries and what they have done well. So for instance, sustainable food. I see sustainable food as sort of the first breakthrough in terms of a sustainable industry that broke through to the mainstream. So even if you're not a diehard environmentalist, everyone has heard of organic, local, even at this point, plant-based has sort of broken through to people in terms of that's better for the environment. But I think one of the lessons that you can draw from it is that market didn't create itself, really. It was a whole lot of people advocating for it, building education and awareness around it. So there were celebrity chefs and Michelle Obama and all kinds of people that were really talking about this. So it started to create a market. And one of the lessons, like I said, is that it was marketed as a thing that is better for you. So it's not just talking about the environment. It's not beating people over the head with like, lower your carbon footprint when you eat, but it's really communicating that no, organic is a better product. So I would say, I would guess that the average person who buys organic food isn't necessarily doing it because they think it's better for the environment, but they're doing it because they think it's better for the health and wellness of themselves and their families. I think it's also marketed as a premium. Whereas in earlier waves of the environmental movement and the sustainability industry, one of the issues was that there was an association with sustainable products being worse. So if you had a sustainable adhesive, a glue, often it just didn't work. The thing, if you glued it to the wall, it would fall off the wall. And whatever they were doing to it to make it more sustainable meant that it worked less well. Now that is not the case. Now sustainable is often associated with premium, that it's actually better. And that is a lesson also that fits with looking to sustainable food as a model, where people go to the farm to table restaurant, not because it's some inferior product, but I'm gonna do it because it's better for the planet, but the farm to table restaurant is the hottest restaurant in town. Everyone has an association with the farm to table food being a better quality of food. So I think that creating that market, talking about it, as Susan also alluded to, we should really be speaking loudly about these things. One of the things that we're focused on at Earth Day Initiative is the idea of being a climate communicator, because any studies of human behavior and just influencing people is that when people hear about something from people that they know, so friends or family or coworkers or just people in your own community, they're so much more likely to act than if there's some PSA or there's some like press release or an educational documentary about the thing. But if you talk about the fact that you really care about sustainability and I'm looking for furnishings that are more sustainable, or businesses talk about the fact that they're dedicating time and energy to this, if you have that touch point and there's just more and more people communicating about it, it creates a market. And I think that that's what we're seeing now, where green buildings were just at the cusp of people understanding this. And I think in the COVID environment, the health and wellness aspect is obviously very top of mind for people. So that is an opportunity to talk about, well, what is the air quality like in your home? And how is that related to the built environment, but also the furnishings and fixtures that you're putting into the home? It's very top of mind, so people are a receptive, sort of fertile ground right now to listen to that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, very, very interesting. Andrea, we often think about sustainable practices applying inside the home. As a landscape designer, what does sustainability mean to you? And I think you talked about it a bit, you know, in
No, but it's an interesting question, because I think, you know, oftentimes when people come to the end of their home building project or a large renovation and they need to focus on landscape, their budgets are often depleted and their spirits are depleted. And I think that, you know, being in this business long enough, you get to be quite savvy about how to reuse existing materials that are on site or that were used before, how to retain existing trees, how to look at the environment and try to repurpose and reuse what is there. By nature, I think by being in this business long enough, having weathered several recessions, I look at my projects like that kind of critically anyway. And so by reusing existing site materials and repurposing existing materials, that's often very helpful to us in order to create, like on a micro level, a more sustainable landscape. I mean, I think also it's important to look around and to see kind of, you know, what's available. Are things being imported from Portugal? Carbon footprint from something that's coming from very far afield is going to be infinitely larger than something that comes from Utah. There are different ways for us to look at this. How far away does it come from? How is it sourced? Those are important questions. For things as basic as furnishings, I have to admit, I have not done my research in terms of finding newer sustainable furnishings, but my go-to is finding vintage furnishings, going to a variety of auctions or thrift stores or, you know, people who sell furniture that came from hotels, trying to find fabrics online that are remnants and repurposing those. So I try to kind of piece together projects on a much smaller level to bring the notion of sustainability at home so that people can live within those environments and know that those aspects are sustainable.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Andrea. That's great. Great to hear. I mean, repurposing, reusing, vintage, all of these are wonderful ways to just send less, you know, in the landfill. Susan, what are some of the innovative new products you see manufacturers, for instance, in wood or textiles, coming up with? Where do you see the most innovation, and where do their efforts focus on? You know, reducing environmental footprint, recycling, upcycling, sourcing, or in their supply chain management, or all of it?
All of it, yes. There are good things happening right, left, and center. In materials, some of you know that one of our initiatives is the Wood Furniture Scorecard, where we are assessing retailers for their sourcing policies around the wood products that they buy. And one of the things we point to is recycled and reclaimed materials. It is an important thing to point to, as well as certified woods, especially FSC certified woods. The recycled reclaimed is important to point to because in the furnishings industry, we have a surprisingly large responsibility for the forests of our world. And since all forest systems in the world are in trouble to some extent, using wood that has not come from a forest is a good solution. Mm-hmm. And these days, the new thing is putting reclaimed wood into regular lumber streams. So if it is reclaimed from a construction project and can be replaned so that it's just another board, it can be used in making furniture that does not necessarily look rustic or live edge, both of which are lovely looks and are popular looks, but they're not for everybody. Some people just need a board or a bunch of boards. And if those boards could come from a source other than a forest or plantation, all the better. So that's a new and exciting thing that we see. And you mentioned textiles. There is also a lot of innovation in recycling fibers, both mechanically and chemically. And for a long time, you know, we've had mechanical recycling of natural fibers. Cotton and wool have been recycled into more fiber for a couple of centuries. Since early in the Industrial Revolution, we were reclaiming and reusing that fiber. But Now, most of our textiles, especially in home furnishings, are actually blends. They are not just one natural fiber, rather they might be a blend of a couple of different synthetics and a couple of different natural fibers. That's very common in upholstery fabrics and drapery fabrics, for instance. And that does make it difficult to recycle the fiber, the material, into new fiber. But there are innovative companies figuring out how to do it. And that is one of the very exciting things that I see.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, thank you, Susan. John, when you advise consumers or businesses how to choose more environmentally friendly homes or workspaces, what do you advise them to look for? That is, what are the elements you consider as being the most impactful in reducing our ecological impact?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that people can look for. So the easiest thing is to look for a certification, but there are a variety of reasons that maybe spaces wouldn't opt for a certification. Sometimes they decide that it's too expensive and not worth the effort to get the actual certification. But the obvious ones would be LEED, Passive House, WELL. WELL is done by the International Well Building Institute. So those are some that are sort of the most popular right now. LEED is obviously the one that most people have heard of, if you've heard of any of them. Passive House is becoming increasingly popular in the US. I see a lot of people moving toward that because it's very straightforward, as opposed to LEED, which is a checklist of items. Passive House is really focused on reducing energy consumption through an airtight envelope and very specific ventilation systems. So if you can actually move into a space that is certified, that's a sort of easy one-stop shop where it's like, okay, I can trust that this has been built to some sort of certification that I can trust. If not, there are various things that you could look for depending on where you live in the country. Obviously, renewable energy. If you live in a city, it might be more difficult if you live in an apartment building that you can't just throw solar panels up on the roof. But for single family homes, that's obviously an easier thing to do. But one of the sort of easiest ways to think about it is what energy is coming in and what energy is going out. So it comes down to renewable energy and energy efficiency. So are you using the right kind of energy, renewable energy, and then how are you using it? Are you using a lot that just goes to waste because your home is not well insulated? There are a lot of municipalities and different areas of the country where you actually get tax incentives to improve the energy efficiency of your home. So it really makes economic sense in terms of you're going to spend less on energy costs, but also you're going to get that tax incentive to make those improvements. So I think the broad category of energy is just one that people can easily look at in terms of where's the energy coming from, how is the energy escaping or being used inefficiently. Our website, dojustonething.org, that's with the number one, dojustonething.org. Right now it's focused specifically on renewable energy. So ways that you can actually switch over to renewable energy even if you live in an apartment or you rent, because often people think, oh, I live in an apartment, I have no ability to put solar panels on my roof. But you can switch over to a program where you become a part of a shared solar project in your community called Community Solar. That's what that model is called, and it's really taken off in a lot of parts of the country. That is a great way to make an impact because you're investing in solar in your own community without having to install panels on your roof. If anyone contacts us as well, we're happy to point them in the right direction. If you just go to that website and click on contact to get in touch, we're happy to point you in the direction of even solar panel installers. There are a lot of great incentives to do that, but that's a big category of what you can do, both focused on energy efficiency and renewable energy. And again, those certifications. So for instance, we as brokers can connect people to places that have, to homes that have specific certifications, but also ones that maybe aren't showing up in those search results according to those certifications, because we know of, and various people we work with know of, homes that have been built to a more sustainable, healthier standard, but because it's not part of the larger conversation around home hunting and house shopping, it's not showing up in those search results. But people can get in touch with us. wherever you are in the country. We're specifically in New York City, but we can also point you in the direction of folks that we work with in other places too.
Thank you, John. Andrea, creating a connection to nature, biophilic design, and else is a demonstrated approach to enhancing well-being, a positive state of mind, and even healing. By definition, you are healing with nature as part of landscape design and your work. How do you think about enhancing a connection to nature in the way you design outdoor living spaces or in the way you create connections, blurring the lines between indoors and outdoors?
That's a great question. I think that the most important ways that we can connect indoors and outdoors is looking at our outdoor spaces in two ways. I think the first way that we should look at it is from within the house and within the home. What are your views look like? What kind of spaces are you creating? Do they make you actually want to go outside? Or are they disorganized and sometimes cluttered or maybe a little dirty? You might have a plant graveyard within view. Sometimes all of those orchids tend to go and live outside. So thinking about what your views look like from the inside, and are you creating something visually that's going to draw you outdoors? And it's not just during the day. Lighting is extraordinarily important. How are you lighting and illuminating your landscape? Is it beautiful at night? So that's the first part. How does it look? Not to be so superficial, but if it looks good, you're going to be drawn outside. And I think second of all is really understanding the functionality of a family or an individual that lives in a respective space and understanding what their needs are. Clearly, we didn't anticipate COVID, and we had no idea that we were going to be spending as much time as we are indoors. But by creating outdoor spaces that are reflective of a family's use of space or an individual's use of space, I think is really important. I've been building a lot of fire pits lately for people to socially distance, speaking over a crackling fire, which is pretty cleansing. We've been creating alfresco dining areas, sometimes with multiple tables, so that families can come and socially distance and be eating together at the same time. So together, apart, creating those outdoor spaces where people can work out. People, everyone we knew at the beginning of COVID who didn't have their own gym, and that was 99% of the population, were creating outdoor spaces where they could work out and, you know, carving out those spaces. So we were sometimes asked to make those more beautiful, and we did. And then, you know, one more thing is just trying to carve out individual spaces for people to relax and to enjoy and to contemplate the nature around them when you're in unsettling times, and we all have been. There's nothing more grounding than looking around and taking pleasure in a tree or a flower and that momentary aspect of life. And anybody who has looked at my Instagram has seen many, many pictures of those quiet moments that we try to carve into the landscape for people.
Yes, Andrea, absolutely. Enjoying these moments are just so important, especially these days. Susan, we are reaching our last questions and we are on the timing. If you could give each a brief answer, and maybe we can get to the Q&A. It's going so fast. The Sustainable Furnishing Council members take immediate steps to minimize carbon emissions, waste stream pollutants, unrecyclable content and primary materials from unsustainable sources from any product platform under their control. How do you see the level of awareness of environmentally safe furnishings and products among designers and consumers? And how can we understand the breadth of eco-friendly options available?
Mm-hmm. There are many, many options available. There are many things that fit into what is eco-friendly and for different reasons. And John, you talked about this earlier. It can be overwhelming, easily overwhelming. So you're brilliant to be referring to just one thing. We have stolen the idea, and we have a Just One campaign because we agree that doing just one thing is a good idea. And there is always just one more thing that one can do. And there is a variety of levels of understanding among interior designers, for instance. I think everybody across the board can think of just one thing to do at this point in their operations. And I think everybody will afterwards be able to think of just one more. But what I do want to emphasize is that there is a variety of understanding. So sometimes people will be very eager to tell me that they're choosing recycled metal for something. And the fact is that in the furnishings industry, most of the metal we use is recycled because it is cheaper and it works perfectly well for any furnishings material. So I want people to understand that they are already choosing recycled metal if they're choosing something metal in the furniture, and there are other things that they can do. Being loud about what they're doing is important, and seeking guidance is important. So we are here to help. Let us know if you need any help.
Thank you, Susan. John, Susan and you just talked about the concept, do just one thing. Beyond buying a new home, how would you advise further current homeowners to make a start to becoming more environmentally friendly? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that I talked about earlier in terms of renewable energy, that's something that most people think is totally out of their control, but is something that you can do in a matter of minutes. Again, going to our website at dojustonething.org. Also, if you do have the capacities to do renovations, things that make it more energy efficient, it's just something that is so passive that you can do the one time, and then from then on, you don't really have to think about it, because if you make these upgrades in terms of sealing up holes so that you're better insulated, you're making your home more energy efficient. And on that note of something that you can do where it takes one time, one thing that sounds really silly but is actually effective is if you put something in the back of the tank of your toilet. This is something that we actually talk to people about a lot, where you can buy it online. You can Google toilet brick, and they sell devices that are specifically oriented at this. Put it in the back of your toilet in the tank that fills up with water, because the average toilet fills up with more water than is needed to flush. But if you take up volume, then with every flush, it takes up less water. So you're reducing your overall water consumption. And the whole thing that we try to focus on with the tips that we give people is make it easy. It's not even a habit change. You do it one time and then you never have to think about it again. But with every flush, you're using less water and you have instantly made your home more energy efficient. Typically, these things that you buy online, they even come in a pack of like 2 or 3. So put them in every toilet in your home, give them to a friend. But that's something that takes literally a matter of minutes, super cheap. And then with every flush, you're actually conserving water.
Thank you, John. Do just one thing. Andrea, in an environment where we are increasingly spending more time at home, do you have some practical tips for how we can enhance our outdoor environments?
Sure. Simply put, I think don't let having something not look perfect be a barrier to you. Don't do that. It's so unproductive. Bring beautiful things indoors, outdoors. If you don't like your outdoor pillows, bring your indoor pillows or cushions outside. Activate your space with music. Activate your space with beautiful floral arrangements. Do what you need to do in order to make it palatable for you to go outside. Vacuum your furniture, take off those schmunky yucky furniture covers that we all have covering our furniture that get gross. Remove those obstacles and you will find yourself spending more time outside. I just want to make, I had an idea listening to John. One thing that I think that would be remiss if I did not mention, and this is slightly off topic from your question, was we as designers, we as builders, we as people who are real estate professionals, do not underestimate organizations like Habitat for Humanity that will not only pick up and accept donations of any, sort of home item, varying from low flow toilets to double paned glass windows to doors to hardware, any furnishing that's inside. Most Habitat for Humanities will pick up for $10, and they sell to families in need, but they'll also sell to people who just want to go and find fun vintage furnishings. And that's an easy way for all of us to reduce our use and to reuse what's there for us.
Thank you, Andrea. Absolutely important, so important. So that's it. I mean, thank you for sharing your insights. I think that's all we have time for now, but we can have maybe a couple of Q&A questions. Please remember to type those in the Q&A fraction if you have not done so. Dana, would you have any question?
Yeah, Lori Gorlick has a great question. She says, one issue I find with homeowners is that it's more costly to refinish and or refurbish existing furniture than to buy something new, and they therefore opt for the new. I often stress the quality of the older pieces and sustainability aspect, but money often drives the decision. Do you have any recommendations for selling the sustainability option?
Yes, I do. And it is talking about what you are actually getting when you get that secondhand thing, even if you are going to make some investment in refurbishing it. You are getting an object that is customized for you. And not everything can be refinished and refurbished effectively. If it can be, it is a good quality product and it is going to last a long time. You're making it the color or the fabric or the sort of finish that you want it to be. You are customizing it for your life. And when you think of a customized product, that is a very valuable thing. That's a luxury choice, and you will get it at a better price when it's a used product that is refurbished. That's my tip.
Thank you. Dana, one more question?
Sure, this one's for John. When considering building a home, it can be overwhelming. Are there any manufactured homes being built that would be certified and qualify as sustainable? I would consider buying land and putting a manufactured home, especially if I could find one like this.
Yeah, so no names come to me top of mind right now, but I do know that, especially just on the energy efficiency side, I've seen a lot in that space. I was recently looking at homes upstate for someone, and that is an angle that people are really pushing in terms of energy efficiency being very top of mind. So there are options out there. In terms of specific names that I could point you to, I don't have those top of mind right now, but if you get in touch with me, I'm sure Laurence can distribute my information. There are some resources that I could point you to. It is really something that people are moving in the direction of in terms of just energy efficiency in general. And I think increasingly health and wellness is something that's more and more talked about. But also depending on where you are, a lot of municipalities have regulation that really force people to move in the direction of energy efficiency and more sustainable homes. So that's something that the industry is responding to. So there are definitely options out there.
Thank you. So this has been a wonderful discussion, but unfortunately we are out of time. I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists, Susan Inglis, John Opperman, and Andrea Scharf for all their expertise, their astute observations, and timely advice. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. You can follow at Laurence Carr Design on social media and all our guests' social media, which we will share. This webinar has been recorded and will be shared with all registered attendants, as well as on our YouTube channel and IGTV. Thanks again, stay well, and see you next time. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.